Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. I hope we have, I don't know how many of you all are here right now, but welcome to the talk with the whole parenting on Talk Time Tuesdays. Today we have joining us Sonia Ray. And Sonia, I am so happy to have you here today with us. You come very highly recommended, and I know that normally you do this. You get paid to talk to people about emotional resilience and how they can get there and to do the work with them. And you're here today for free, and that says a lot about who you are as a person. And I am really pleased to have you on with us today. Now, Sonia, you've done a lot. Your the list is long. But can you tell us a bit more about who you are, where your background, and how you come to be the person you are today, doing what you do, the good work that you do?
Certainly. Thank you. And it's a pleasure. Thank you very much for having me. So in terms of my working life, I did a degree in sociology and psychology, and then I moved very quickly into the medical industry, selling medical devices and pharmaceutical products. I then went into policing, which I did for 6 years. And then I set up my own business, and I'm now a business owner. And I deliver a variety of courses, mainly around health and safety. And I'm branching for more and more now, due to demand, into working with schools and family centres with emotional resilience and well-being, which is really growing. So that's that bit. In terms of my actual cultural background, I am British born into an Asian family, and that was quite a confusing time in itself, because there was definitely a push and pull, where I wanted to do a lot of the things my Western friends were doing, and my parents were pretty liberal, but it was quite difficult where the line was. And I think that was really difficult for me, because I wanted to go out and talk to boys and, go out with my friends and go to the cinemas and have friends over. And that was tricky, because it wasn't always the done thing. So that's me in a nutshell.
Thank you in a nutshell. Now, thank you for sharing who you are. I know you studied sociology and psychology as well along the way, and you've been in the police. And I think it would be good to have you come on here to talk about some of the other issues that we discussed very recently, 2 weeks ago, on with our parent panel about young Black children and Black people and the police, that relationship. So it would be good to have you to talk about, have a discussion on that another time. But today we're focusing on emotional resilience and emotional well-being. And I've just almost got you to commit to coming on again. You see how I did that? Very tricky.
I did see that. It'd be a pleasure. It'd be a pleasure. Thank you.
Now, today we're talking about emotional well-being and emotional resilience, and our topic today is emotional resilience and well-being while living through a pandemic and racial uprising. Sonia, can you tell us, now we are living through unprecedented times. I mean, I don't know when we've had a situation like what we're going through now. I mean, there've been pandemics in the world before. We've had racial uprisings before. Everything happening all at once in the time that we live in, our modern times, is unprecedented. And we hear the terms like emotional resilience and emotional well-being coming through conversations. We see it on social media, we hear it in the media, because it's so necessary now for us. We hear it and people say you need this and you need that, but what we don't often get is practical steps on how to do it in our everyday lives and how to do it with our children. And so I felt it was necessary to have somebody on like you who give practical steps on how to be more emotionally resilient in the face of trauma, in the face of stress and difficulties. Now, let's get right into the topic by first defining what emotional resilience is. What is emotional resilience and why is it so important?
So it's the ability to adapt to stressful situations. And as you say, we are definitely in that moment.
Yeah.
And it's about adapting, but then not having any sort of lasting difficulties. So once it's passed, it's not saying that you're not going to feel the stress and that you're not going to, burden some of that pain and upset, etc. But it's more about, it's not going to sort of linger, and it's not going to give me sort of a continuation of issues later on. So some people talk about bounce back, some people talk about rolling with the punches, and you've got to be careful with that sort of terminology, because it's not an instant, I'm resilient, bang, I'm fine, here I can go. But it's actually acknowledging really the emotion, which is hence why it's emotional resilience. It's important. We have emotions for a reason as human beings, and it's not a good idea just to can emotion. They're there for a reason, and we have to, especially with young children, allow them to feel it and have those discussions and open up those discussions, because otherwise all that happens is you bury that sense of worry, fear. It manifests itself into sometimes bigger issues, and those bigger issues can be anything from, whether it's not eating and then becoming an eating disorder. It could go from sleeping problems. It could go from, not liking yourself. So many things can transpire if we don't actually deal with the emotion. But the resilience part is almost saying, okay, I'm feeling this, but I'm going to be okay. And not allowing those thoughts to sort of spiral out of control. And hence why having a discussion with an adult can help keep your emotions as a child in check, because you're sharing them and therefore the person can support you. But if you don't share them, then they just are that sinking feeling inside, and you've got no one that can actually get you out of it, which is very scary for a child.
And is it important that the adult also ensures that they are working on their own emotional resilience? Because I think we have a thing in DAME, and for the American audience and Caribbean audience, BIPOC, communities where we talk about being strong women, being strong Black women, for instance, in the Black Afro-Caribbean and African communities, we talk about being strong Black women, and I used to love that term before, but then on thinking further on it and continued education and continued work on myself, I recognize that it is quite a damaging term.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, firstly, definitely the adults, the more self-aware we are as adults, then the more we become aware of how we're parenting, and we're able to then respond to our children's needs better, because sometimes we get caught up in our own mental turmoil, and I've had those moments without a doubt, and I'm able to actually say to my children, you know what, guys, I'm not having a great day. It's nothing to do with you. It's completely me. I'm stressed out. I'm tired. I've got a lot of work on. And they're just so grateful for that, because they're suddenly going, oh, okay, that's fine. I get it, Mum. I have bad days. I understand. In terms of those terminologies and phrases, like yourself, I've loved being known as a strong, independent Indian lady, and I'm very, very proud of that. And I think it can be a double-edged sword, because sometimes you find that you have to live up to that expectation, which almost feels like you cannot have emotion. But like yourself, as I've grown older and wiser and a few more grey hairs, I realized that actually what's really helped me is to say, okay, if I'm sad, I'm allowed to be sad. If I'm feeling stressed about something, it's perfectly acceptable. If I need help, that is still strong to ask for help. So it's not just sort of segmenting, saying you're strong, meaning I have no emotion, I don't get scared, I'm not frightened, I'm not worried about anything. That is not normal, and actually you are cheating yourself. And I don't think you're necessarily living a really authentic, true self. And to me, it's important that we are true to ourselves, because our children can see through that. They can see through it, even if it's not blatant. It still again manifests itself. So the more we are able to connect with our own self, we can then be able to show our children it's perfectly fine to show those emotions. Sorry, did you have another thought?
No. Yeah. So in terms of what's going on now, tell us a bit more about how we, in terms of the pandemic, what does it mean? Emotional resilience, and how do we help ourselves and help our children?
Okay, so with the pandemic, firstly, we understand that everybody in the household, we may live with a few people, or it may even be you live by yourself, but since we're talking families, right? So everybody in the household will have a different experience of what this pandemic means to them.
Yeah.
And the first and most important thing, I think, is to not have a sweeping thought about all of my children will feel the same about this pandemic, or my husband should be feeling the same as I do, which is I'm frustrated and I want to go out. In fact, in my house, we have two people who really are very social butterflies and like to be out, and we have two that are enjoying the calm, the peace, and not having to do too much social interaction. And sometimes that can be a frustration in itself, because you're thinking, well, why aren't you getting frustrated by this? And equally, they may be thinking, well, look, safety is really important. And so you can have a clash. When you talk about children, they won't often tell us how we feel, because sometimes we struggle to have those discussions because we feel we can't open up that so-called can of worms, because we feel, oh, I'm scared if they say something and I don't know how to respond correctly. So importantly with this is, one, we all recognize it is going to be stressful in different ways for different people. Even those that potentially are enjoying the pandemic, there is still going to be concerns about, what about my friends? How's it going to be when I do go back to school? I'm going to be in a new class. I'm going to have a new teacher and I've had no time to even really get to know them. Or maybe it's the same teacher, but I'm going to be in a different classroom. It could just be things like, for the children, I actually really am enjoying this at the moment. And what's going to happen is, my mum and dad going to still have a job. So there are still going to be some real worries, no matter what age range you are, no matter what gender, no matter what circumstances you're in. And I think if we can really support them now, we will be able to potentially see off any long-lasting effects of this in terms of mental health. So the emotional resilience part is broader than just this pandemic and this moment. It's been important from day dot. And thankfully it's been talked about before the pandemic, but now it's become even more of a discussion that needs to happen. Because if we look at some strategies in a moment, they are things that you're perhaps doing. But often what I find in life is that we sometimes do things subconsciously. And so, I don't know about yourself, but I've had a day, and sometimes my day goes really well, and sometimes it just doesn't. And when you don't reflect, and when you don't sort of consciously are aware of why it's gone well, or what you need to do to make it go well, sometimes you're just sort of left thinking, all right, that was just a good day. I'm not even sure I can repeat it. What we want to be able to do is build this emotional resilience in our children, the ability to not get bogged down so that it has lasting effects, and to, as I say, see off any potential mental health illnesses that may come about out of this pandemic, such as anxiety and depression. And even if someone has an existing mental health condition or mental illness, for terminology's sake, then again, it's important that if they have good emotional resilience, the evidence suggests that actually more emotional resilience will mean you'll be able to cope better with your mental illness. So we can talk about some practical things that you can do, but I really think a lot of people are doing them already, but they need to be aware they're doing them, and they need to do them more consciously.
Okay. So and I fully agree with you. I think sometimes we've picked up skills along the way that we don't realize as skills. We just think it's, oh, this is just how I do things. And then at the same time, we've picked up bad practices along the way, and we don't realize how damaging it could be on our well-being, and how it also chips away on our resilience as well. So I fully agree with you. Now, because this platform is very much about parents and children, could you tell us how we can build resilience in our children, particularly give us some ideas on what it is that we can do to build resilience in the children who are in our care, whether we are mothers or fathers, or whether we are aunties and uncles. What can we do to build resilience in our children?
So practical tips. Firstly and most importantly is to recognize this self-worth, and to also understand self-esteem and self-confidence have a huge part to play in emotional resilience. And you mentioned there about good practice, bad practice. So for self-esteem is based on self-worth. And if a child is hearing constantly them being described as negatives, such as, oh, you're such a bad child, or you never get it right, or you always make mistakes, or you're so stupid, and these words can sometimes slip out of frustration. We don't actually believe them, but the problem is the brain absorbs it, and that's not helpful comments. Okay. So the language that we're using, then, addressing them is really important, and choosing your words so that they are also sincere, meaning not just to say that's a good piece of work, but to be specific. Oh, you tried really hard. I can see that you tried really hard when you did that. To them, that actually means something, because they're thinking, oh, you actually saw what I was trying to do there, not it's just a good piece of work. So language is very important, would be my first thing. And even when I've asked children to describe themselves in the past, they'll often say, oh, I'm stupid, or I'm stubborn, or I'm selfish, I'm not thoughtful. And then I'll ask them, where did those words come from? Are they just in your head? And they'll say, no, my mum said that, or my dad said that, or my teacher said that. And this is why self-worth is based around what's being inputted into our heads. And equally, that goes on to social media and the things that we are exposed to. So importantly, making sure that the key role models in their life reflect them, and that they are able to be able to actually reach out. So, for example, I got a book for my child, okay, and I don't know if that can be fully seen here, but
I can see it. Well, Good Night Stories for Rebel Girls, and we can put it in the later on. We can add it to the description later on.
And so today I just opened up, there's lots in here that's amazing, and I just opened up one page, okay? And what I learned from behind this book was that Mae Jemison was the first African American to actually make it to space. Now, when I was looking at this book with my daughter a while back, we also were deciding who she'd like to go to school and be dressed up as someone that's a role model to her. And she chose Serena Williams. And it was interesting because a lot of people were confused by her, the way she was dressed, because they were not really acknowledging this particular person as a role model. It was quite obvious people that they were choosing. So I think role models are really important. And while you're talking practically, books is important. The media that they see, the language that we use. Other things, though, that I would say practically are, one thing that I've learned in terms of self-confidence is we have to broaden our skill set, because every time you do something new, your confidence grows. So today, coming on doing this, it's a bit awkward, but guess what? The next time you do it, and the next time you do it, it's more and more and more and easier. And what are we teaching our children? So even when you make something, perhaps you're not the best baker, but you try, and your children see you succeed, even through certain failures. This is exactly what we call modeling something, so they can see us go through that strife. And I think it's important that we put some challenges in place for them, and we support them through it. So one view I take is where my daughter, she's helping me, doing something cooking wise. We love to do that together. And a few times it's gone wrong, but we will discuss, how could we have done that differently, etc. It's that discussions that actually validates her as well.
Yeah.
And she'll tell me, you know, I think that mum, you didn't listen to me. And I'm like, okay, yeah, you're right. So it's that having conversations that are honest, and allowing each other to fail, and being there. One of the things I've learned with my son just during the pandemic is sometimes he just wants me to sit and watch him play his games, his computer games, which is really difficult for me because we all know at the moment screen times are up. I mean, look at us right now. But I want to validate something that he enjoys, and rather than go against him, which then chips away at his self-esteem again. Me saying, oh, you know, you need to do more, you need to do better, you don't need to be playing these games. Actually, with me sitting with him, he feels good enough, you know, and he's sharing something that's important rather than me always telling him what he should be doing. He is growing in his own self-confidence and his self-esteem. He feels good about himself. And
I think that's such I think that's something that a lot of us need to maybe think about a little bit more, because I think, as you say, screen time is up now. Screen time is up in a significant way. And I think we feel, I think a lot of parents are having a lot of guilty moments now because we feel like our children are spending too much time on the screens, and we feel that they need to be more involved in something that's more academic. And they're not doing enough of that. And it's easy for us to think, you know what, you spent an hour already today playing a game, or you spent an hour watching, my son loves watching this YouTube channel called Ant Canada, and there's one called Ant Australia. And he loves it. I mean, I know he's learning stuff because he taught me so much about ants, but at the same time, I'm just thinking, this is a screen. And you're spending too much time on it. Or it might be that they're looking at kids who talk about toys on YouTube, and you're thinking they're spending too much time. But I think this time is so difficult for them that, like you say, you said, it's important that we give them a little bit of leeway, you know, like allow them just a little bit. I mean, education is important, but they will still be educated. Hopefully this doesn't last forever, you know, and it's about getting the balance right.
Most definitely. I mean, you know, coming back to self-esteem and how important it is, if your parent is constantly at you telling you your choices are wrong, then what you're also creating potentially is a child that is constantly requiring you to come up with the answers. And there is nothing wrong about them being on their screens. I've realized my son has been doing extremely well with his online learning at school because he feels less stressed about feeling like he has to quickly jump on his screen when his mum's not looking. So this trust is important. I mean, he is older, and this is the other thing, it is about age appropriate. But as they grow, we need to remember they are growing and they're not the same 4-year-old, 5-year-old, and so on. So you've got to look at them, and then you've got to ask yourselves, you know, what is age appropriate for them? And if I'm raising a young man who's 14, he should be able to manage his day fairly well with some interjection. And I'm actually seeing him growing out of this process through the pandemic. But it's a bit like they say, is the glass half empty or half full? It's how you want to view it. But I definitely don't want to be chipping away at my son's self-esteem, because we've already accepted your self-esteem and your self-confidence is important to life, your emotional resilience, your ability to bounce off other issues that might come your way. We cannot protect our children from the curveballs that they're going to face, but we can give them the skills to ward it off. And it does begin at home. You know, if they feel good about themselves, then they are going to feel stronger about dealing with these things here and now. One thing I would like to share that I found really helpful is when we talk about opening up the discussion, actually the children have the answers, but sometimes we don't know how to ask the questions. So something that's important is for them to know how they're feeling. How's their body reacting to stress? What are their triggers? So one thing I like to use is just a very basic gingerbread person, okay? And you can use this gingerbread person in any way you like. But one of the questions I ask my young people that I work with, or even indeed the mums that I work with regularly, is, okay, can you tell me when you are feeling worried? Or you might even start off with, how do you feel at the moment? That might even be the first thing. And they can just write down some answers. They can even draw. Some people draw tears. Some people draw angry eyes. Some people just want to put a big black circle around their stomach, meaning they're feeling very sick.
Yeah.
And then you can open up that discussion. Okay, what does this mean? And then you can also go on further to say, okay, so what happens when you're feeling like this? What do you tend to do? And then again, they might say, oh, I get really angry, I really like to shout, or you know, I don't feel like anyone's listening. So all you're trying to do is open them up, like a beautiful flower that's closed. You're just trying to open it up, and by opening it up, you get to understand your child. And if you can get into their proper psyche, not the day-to-day, this, he likes sausage or he likes chicken and whatever, it's actually understanding them on a real level. Then you can then start to support them. So now I know my daughter is I don't know, scared of, she's not really scared of many things, but let's say she is scared of snakes. She's told me that recently. Okay, so she's scared of snakes. Now, it might sound silly, but that's actually part of the emotional resilience, because if I, at some point, can get her near a snake, manufacture a moment, she is going to feel good about herself if she can actually come face to face with that. But without me even knowing that that's a concern or a fear for her, right? I'll never know that, so I will never actually be able to address that. I mean, that might be a really sort of silly example, but you can see where I'm going. If at the moment I know what bothers my child, the more I can actually do to support her, as opposed to doing things that I think she's worried about or I think is good for her. Because sometimes we miss the boat. We're so busy just focusing on the end goal that we forget what's happening in their little lives.
Yes, the communication is quite important, and I like the example you gave of the gingerbread person, you know, because that's an easy way to open up a conversation, or it is an easy way to communicate without using verbal communication, because they could do the drawings, and that could be as much as they need to do, I'm guessing. I guess when you do these activities with the young people you work with, I'm sure some of them may just draw, and that's the end of what they're doing. Some may open up and speak further, but then I guess you're opening up, it's building the communication relationship with them.
Yeah, and also that internal communication, as you say, because sometimes they might not need to speak about it, but they're thinking about it and they're understanding and processing it rather than just suppressing those feelings. You know, even with this, you can even ask them, write down what you think about, sorry, wrong way around, write down what you think about yourself. So it could be things like they say, oh, I'm stupid, I'm ugly, I'm too dark, I don't like my hair, I don't like my eyes, my nose, whatever. And then again, you can see that this is something that's bothering them. I'm too fat, I'm too skinny, you know, whatever it might be. Now we can support rather than second guessing. And when we second guess, all that does as a parent is it just increases our own anxiety. As well, is my child all right? Oh my gosh, am I actually meeting their needs? But in this sense, by me actually understanding and listening, as Gandhi said, you know, what was it? Silence is, no, it was something, and I'm going to misquote him, which is embarrassing, but it's essentially, he's basically saying that silence is gold. Okay. So this ability, you've been given 2 ears and you've given 1 mouth. If we do more listening, we will be able to uncover an array of issues that our children may be feeling, and they might not even be very big. They might be quite small, and actually we might be able to squash them if we help them just say, okay, I acknowledge that, you know, tell me a bit more about it. Sometimes they don't even need the solution, as you said. It's just recognizing that, okay, another thing, another practical thing, another picture that I've just drawn, a cloud. It doesn't even look like a cloud, I know. But the idea here is they can just chuck all of their worries inside there, okay? So you can just say, again, what are you worried about? And they could say, oh, I'm worried because my friends aren't talking to me. I'm worried because, you know, when is this going to end? Is
Yeah.
there, you know, and I've heard young children at the moment even asking the question, is there any point to carrying on like this? And these are young children, you know, 11 years of age, because they're saying, well, this kind of life of not hugging people is really not normal, and I don't like it because I like hugs. But would we necessarily know that our child is feeling that way unless we've opened up that discussion?
Yes.
And that could be quite dark for that child if they are feeling those feelings alone without sharing that with somebody, and especially without sharing it with an adult, you know.
I mean, and you're right. Even speaking to your children about, for a tactile child, a child who likes, you know, to be hugged and to hug people and shows love, and you know, that way, it could be, these children might be facing far more difficulty than we are thinking that they're facing. Because even as an adult, I'm quite an affectionate person. So I will hug you, I will see you, I'll meet you for the first time, and my instinct is to give you, you know, a hug, which is not everybody likes that, and I recognize that. But for me, we did a drive-by the other day by a friend of ours, just this weekend, because we just wanted to see people. And I have a newborn baby, and they hadn't seen the baby yet, and I just thought, you know what, I just want to see people I haven't seen for a while. So we did a drive-by, and my instinct, it was so hard for me to keep the social distance. So hard for me not to hug. I found it incredibly difficult. And her sons are my son's really close friends. And I tell you, it was so hard for him to practice social distancing. And in retrospect, I thought, did you make it just such a difficult situation for him? Because he is also quite affectionate. It was difficult for him to stay away from them. So those conversations about things like that we think may be simple, maybe far more profound,
absolutely,
than we think they are.
And you know, you could have again tried to protect him by not taking him there at all, but taking him there and then being able to have a discussion afterwards is better in some respects, because otherwise, you know, he's going to feel, okay, I can't see my friend, and my mum can't even tell me when I can, because no one's giving me an answer, because there is no answer. We all know that at the moment. There is no clear answer. So they are left suspended, as we all are. But when you're young and left suspended, it's very scary. And you're looking to the adults in your life to give you that stability and to give you the answers. So if you don't take him, he's now in his own mind just thinking, when will it ever happen? When will it ever happen? Taking him, and although it's difficult, his resilience, his emotional resilience will be built from that, because he's going to say, okay, well, do you know what? This is good enough at the moment. It's better than nothing. And then you're saying to him, listen, it's not great. I accept that. We'd love to hug them, but we can't. But look what we can do. And you're also now building a picture in his head that there's hope. That maybe right. So, but by just canning it and not talking and opening up about it, and being honest about your own feelings, because they think we're not human. Sometimes children don't believe that we sleep and we cry and we get tired.
We feel the same things.
So when they know that their parent is relatable, suddenly go, okay, right. This feeling is nothing to be embarrassed about. It's nothing to be, you know, ashamed. And also, more importantly, we know that when we know other people feel that way, it gives us that sense of security that, okay, I'm not alone.
His mommy and daddy are okay. And I think that was one of the things that we discussed on the parent panel two weeks ago, is being open and honest, and creating a space where you can discuss almost anything. And part of creating that space is letting your children know, well, I am scared also, I'm afraid, I want to see my friends, but even though I'm afraid, while I'm afraid, I do X, Y, Z. So let's do this together.
Exactly.
I want to see my friends. I really miss my friends, but let's maybe do a drive-by and stay in the car and speak to them from the car to their house. So, or stay by the car, whatever, keep still social distance, but let them know that you're feeling the same things that they're feeling or quite similar to what they're feeling. So I like what you're saying there. And
Yeah.
then you can have that discussion for, you open up that safe space for that discussion.
Absolutely, that safe space. And one other thing that's just triggered my thoughts is actually one really important point is we want to create problem solvers. Okay.
Yes.
So when we look at emotional resilience, what we're showing our child by doing what we've done there, by doing the drive-by, is we have a problem, but what are our solutions? And often we have a problem and we look at just the problem and we don't think of the multiple solutions, which just on my hand, I've only got 2 here, right? But there are many solutions. And so the moment your child starts to work solutions, and especially when we show them, then let's say they got lost in their big new school because they're going to high school, for example, okay? They are used to, their brain is wired to solve the problem rather than sit there. And the parent's worst nightmare is to visualize their child crying or by themselves or lost. The child, in fact, we've given them the tools, the resilience, that emotional resilience to go, okay, what are my options? Right. I could cry and get upset because I feel really sad right now. I could go and ask a child, oh, I've just spotted someone that's in my class. I could go and just sit for a moment and look at my timetable and try and work out where the place is. I'll find a teacher. Yeah. So suddenly, again, and this is what we say about life. Life is full of curveballs. Some of them are big, some of them are small. Some of them may be big to you or small to me or vice versa. But the fact is, the more we're able to give them those tools of problem solving. So hence why, if you give them something to do at home that's a little bit tricky, you can start the conversation off with, how are we going to build a house with lolly sticks, which is what my daughter and I have been doing with the glue gun and the lolly sticks. And at first her builds were really basic, and that's how she started, right? And then she was realizing that if she doesn't put double layers of glue, it falls. Now she's got 2-layer houses and extensions on them. So she's problem solving. But initially it was like, is she ever going to get to more than just one fence panel, which is what she was originally making, right? And when she was left to her own devices and given something new, and I was supporting her, but from afar, she got there, So problem solving is key to this. I think I've kind of given some of the key bits here, but I want to end just before, you may have some more questions, but I want to end on one acronym that's really helped me. And I'm just going to jot it on this bit of paper in front of me, okay? So it spells the word CAP, okay? C-A-P.
Yes.
And what is understood by this for good mental well-being, good mental health, is that the C stands for being connected. So if we've got little children or teenagers, whatever they might be, including ourselves, this applies. For good mental health, for good well-being, you should be connected. So whether it's a Zoom, whether it's talking to your friend over the fence, whether it's even watching telly or listening to music, the connectedness,
somebody.
or a cat, and we know the benefits of animals, etc., that have come out in science studies. So connectedness is very important for a good well-being, good state of mind. The A is achievement. So we must look for in our day these 3 things. And so we're looking for an achievement of some sort for our child. So they've found the connection, perhaps they've played with their friend or they've seen them on Zoom. Their achievement for the day may be that they've done their homeschooling. Thank goodness that's all gone, but it could be something to that effect. Yeah, you know what I mean. And the P, I know a lot of parents will be going, yeah, we know what you mean. And the P is actually very interesting because it's pleasure. Because not always is your achievement pleasurable, i.e. the homeschooling. Yeah, you've done all your worksheets. They weren't much fun, but you've done them and you have a sense of achievement, which again goes back in and feeds back into your self-confidence. and self-esteem, because you'll be having your parents saying, well done, you got there, even though that was tough. Okay, so we're building both those things again. And then the P, the pleasure, is important, that the child, including yourself, has some time. Now, if that's screen time, if that is just them not doing very much, we always feel that we have to do things, give them activities, but actually studies have shown that a bored child will eventually not be bored much longer, because eventually they find things to do. And I was this parent that would always try and create an activity.
Yeah.
And sometimes it just feels like, as a child, I can imagine when I took a step back, it was like jumping hurdles. And you need quiet time. And you talked at the beginning about self-awareness, our own self-awareness. If we can create self-awareness at a young age, then you won't get to necessarily 40 something and realize that actually you don't have to go and see 5 people in the day and do 5 chores and do all this crazy stuff. Actually, being still is actually a good thing.
And you can say no to doing stuff, and you can say no to going out somewhere, and you can say no, well, whenever we get to go out again. Well, you know, right now we just want
I'd like to say no. I haven't had the opportunity.
Yeah. So I really like that, and I think I will put that in the description, or when we do a recap later, I'm using that acronym again, because I think it's so simple, but quite effective as well, and it covers quite a lot of things in one. Now, you've spoken about emotional resilience as it applies to the pandemic. Now, recently we've also been going through a racial uprising, for want of a better word or want of a better term. And we had a very valuable discussion 2 weeks ago with our parent panel about speaking to Black children about race and racism. And during the discussion, we discussed how much racism Black children face on a daily basis, covertly and overtly. And we discussed it based on the science, based on research. So it's not just anecdotal, it's not just us saying this is what we think, my child was told X, Y, Z, and I think that's racism, you know. It's because of the research. So based on that, we discussed it based on robust research. Now, we also discussed that there's documented lasting impact of racism on Black children, and these are children as young as 5 we're talking about as well. We also discussed how difficult it is for some parents to have the conversation of racism with their children, because they are afraid that that discussion will take away from the child's innocence, and that it will shock their system. Some parents themselves are dealing with understanding racism in itself, understanding what has just happened, understanding why this is still a problem in 2020, and we're dealing with our own fears. I saw something the other day, something online that says facing racism is trying to figure out where the least racist restaurant is so that you can go to it. I mean, why do we have to look on TripAdvisor to see the reviews to see if they will accept Black people and BIPOC people before we go to a restaurant? We shouldn't have to do that in 2020. We shouldn't have to feel that type of pressure in 2020. And so we discussed that. I digressed a little.
I don't blame you though. It's such a huge topic, and it's so hard to catch.
And I'm tired. We're all tired. I feel really tired about it. But we discussed that these effects on Black children are lasting, and its effects on it affects their mental well-being significantly. And we already know that we have quite a large a big problem of mental illness in the Black community, and for several reasons, for transgenerational transmission of trauma that's come down through the years, things that we carry in our DNA, things that we are not aware of that we need to deal with, but because we are not aware of it, we are unable to deal with it. There are stigmas around many things. I mean, there's so many reasons why we have such large numbers. Now, I know that a lot of parents are keen to understand how best they can protect their children emotionally as regards racism. How best can parents support emotional resilience in their children so can you tell us how best parents can support emotional resilience in their children as it pertains to racism and what's happening right now? Can you give us some ideas on how best? And I know you're a BIPOC BAME woman, so you are also faced with racism. Let's be honest. You know what it is like, and you and I have had this conversation about racism and how it's affected you as well. So I know that you understand this, maybe not the same. I don't understand it the same way you understand it, and you don't understand it because we have different experiences, but you do understand what it is like. So from your professional and personal experience, can you tell us how best we as adults can deal with it ourselves, but how best we can create emotional resilience, in our children so that they can deal with facing these things?
Yeah. And before I do, I just really have to acknowledge, I know we're running out of time, but I have to acknowledge the fact that I also feel a sense of Asian privilege, okay? Because I have to be honest with you, if I had a chance to come back on this earth, I wouldn't want to come back as a black man. I would, because I love black men and black women and everyone, but I wouldn't, because it is the toughest of the tough position to be in. And I have to acknowledge that, because it literally saddens me, and it's very hard to just have a brief conversation. And as you say, we've had deep conversations. So for me to raise the black man's profile, be black people, yes, in general, but the black man's profile, to just make sure that our young men, and I will call them ours, because I believe all of us humans are together. This is not about whites against blacks or any of this sort of stuff. This is just raising the profiles and making sure that those lovely young children grow up knowing their self-worth and having that self-confidence. So coming from that, the lasting effects you mentioned, again, I want to acknowledge that, because I had a moment when I was 5, okay, and it lasted, and I can still talk about it because there would be many more moments throughout my life. But that one was a big one, because you talked about that innocence, that people don't want to necessarily broach the subject. But my innocence was taken that day, and I couldn't then vocalize what had happened to my mum. And perhaps I'd even forgotten it for a moment, and perhaps I was ashamed to even talk about it. So it's still replayed at points. Perhaps for the rest of the day I'd managed to suppress it. Now my take-home thought for this is just forewarned is forearmed, okay? So it's better to have the children informed, and that is basing my thoughts around your conversations 2 weeks ago. Have open, honest discussions. Let them know that racism is real, it's here, how it has progressed in terms of life has improved so much, yet it's still there, whether it's subtle or whether sometimes it's in your face. And how we can go about doing that will be age appropriate, which I'll come to. But just to say that we should not be scared of having the conversations, because unfortunately the truth remains that all the listeners, or you and I and anyone that you might speak to, has probably experienced a version of it, and it's just not okay. So some of the things, there's some literature out there at the minute that I was reading about explaining it to a young child, and saying that some people are treated differently based on their skin color. How would you feel if or how mean would this be if somebody gave one child 5 sweets and the other child 1 sweet? How would that child feel, the one that only got 1? And how would you describe the person that's doing that? Is that kind or unkind? And then you say, okay, so based on that, some people make decisions to behave in that way based on someone's color. What do you think about that? Yeah, but it's about sort of pitching it so that this is not a problem all of the time. But some people have that type of frame of mind, and we need to be aware of it, and we need to say the word and not look at it as dirty and be ashamed. We have nothing to be ashamed of. This is just something that is in society. And I think when we consider what we can do, I have recently, in fact, based on the recent unrest with the passing of George Floyd and everything that's followed, I decided to do a timeline based on African American history. And I dated it right back to 1600s when slavery started, all the way to the present day. And it was so informative and so refreshing and so inspiring to see the amazing people and the way that things have progressed. Equally, though, it gave me a sense of anger and upset and sadness. But, you know, I'm better informed, and I can convey those messages to my children in a way which will be open up the discussion and let them lead it. We don't have to tell them everything. We can just mention the word. You know, what do you understand about racism? Or has anyone ever mentioned anything to you that's made you feel uncomfortable about yourself? I mean, they might just say, oh yeah, they said that they didn't like my hair, or they didn't, you know, and then you can get onto the topic that way. So it's just small things, really. And I've also, I know that there is there's one particular statue near where my sister lives, and it's a statue that's been instated for a while, and I won't give away where she lives because she might not be grateful for me, but this particular statue is amazing, and I want to take my niece and nephew down there to see it, to have a discussion about what this statue means, because it's pretty incredible, the story behind him. And making again these books that I speak of, making sure that our children know that there are plenty of amazing people out there, past and present, that have done amazing things, that are, like the film says, hidden figures. And we need to create a platform for them. And we need to make our scrapbooks and put all those amazing people in and say, look, you know, when we think of composers, we think of some classics, Beethoven, for example, and they all seem to have a certain look. We need to mix that up. And we need to be the best history teachers in our home. Don't rely on anyone to give your child history, because it won't necessarily be balanced. They're going to get one view in school. Where's the other bit coming from? We need to fill that gap. So as far as I'm concerned, there's a lot to be doing. And I do think we need to make sure that we're not giving too much of a strong opinion. We need to say, this is what my experience has been, but it's not everyone's experience. Okay, because again, then we're formulating too much for them, perhaps. But if you've had an experience, and age related, is nothing wrong in telling your child. I've had discussions around the table with my child about the time when a child told me not to touch their doll, that 5-year-old moment, and she said, if you do, it will turn brown. Now, I'm so glad I had that conversation, because my daughter experienced something similar, and she was ready for it. You know, she dealt with it really well, and I was just so proud of her. But what I can't do is let her go into a place with no knowledge whatsoever and just caught on a back foot. So forewarned is forearmed.
And I really like that term. I've never heard it before. I'm going to write it down, because I really like this. Forewarned is forearmed.
This is just a struggle that, and again, it's not to look at it as a victim. We're not victims. We're survivors of something. And you know, we're collected in our thoughts, and we don't have to experience the same person's thing exactly, but you can feel it. And even white friends feel this stuff as well. We've seen it now. It's a global thing. It's a mixed cultural thing where we're all coming together, and you know, those people who are educated in humanity know that we are all equal. And thank goodness there's been this big awakening, as you say, an uprise.
Yeah.
It's sad the way it's come about, but
yeah.
we've got to do something positive. So yeah, when it comes back to emotional resilience, it is about making sure that that sense of belonging, that identity, that, you know, there's nothing to be ashamed of. In fact, we need to celebrate.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Thank you so much, Sonia. I know we could talk a lot more, but we're running out of time now, and we kind of have a history of running out of time that we don't want to go too long now. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your input. Thank you for agreeing to be on and doing this voluntarily, and just wanting to be part of this because you want to see change. Also, please tell us a little bit more about Sonia does workshops around emotional resilience. For those of you living in the UK, Sonia does workshops around emotional resilience, and I guess not just for those living in the UK now, because right now everything is happening on Zoom, online. So you do workshops around emotional resilience and emotional well-being. You've been doing that for a long time. You do it particularly in schools and at family centers, and with families. And do you want to tell us and the rest of the people looking where we could find you if people are interested in doing a workshop with you or doing some one-to-one coaching work with you? Where can we find you?
Yeah, so I generally run sessions 5 weeks, because that's when we can really experience change. The person can really start to take on some of their own thoughts and implement some change. But one-to-ones on a one-off, whatever's optional. Now, all it is, I've got a website. I'm I guess not too up with it. So it's now websites are traditional because everything's moving. So all you need to do is tap into www.trainingly.co.uk, and the way we spell Trainingly is the word training and then ly at the end. So trainingly.co.uk. And yeah, I mean, it's just been a pleasure. If it ends here, that's good enough, as long as someone has gathered or gained something from here and now. I'm just grateful to be part of something amazing, so thank you.
And we will add all the information because the live will remain as an evergreen on Facebook Live, and it will also go on YouTube. So we'll add all of this information about where you can get in touch with Sonia in the description. So it's easier for people to find you.
Okay, perfect. Thank
Sonia,
you.
thank you so much again for being here, and I hope that we can get you on maybe some other time soon enough to just discuss other aspects around this, because you've done so much and you've been involved in so many different aspects in the community, which makes your work so full and valuable. So thank you very much for coming on again, and I hope that everyone on Facebook Live and those who will look at it later on will benefit quite a lot from what has been said here today. And we can move the work on along. Thank you so much again.
Okay, thank you.